The name's Chaos, Master Chaos, and I've just had my heart broken. Um, but is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing? And that's why I'm here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Kung Fu Santa himself, Mr. Ric Meyers. How are you, sir?
I'm great. I saw No Time to Die, or actually, I should put it properly, No Time to Die.
Right. Yes. Well said. So, this was in the thumbnail, but 100%. Just so you know, I'm going to say it once, and it's down in the ticker. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. We're
They'll
going to talk
they'll be spoiled.
everything.
They'll be
Yeah,
spoiled.
there's no way we can't do spoilers for this movie, and give it the actual conversation that I think it deserves. Because boy, a lot of unique things happen in this one. I'm going to turn it over to Rick in a second, but just so you know at home, I grew up with James Bond. My dad, that's one of the things we bonded over, and I just loved it. I was as a kid, I knew intrinsically what it was, what it was trying to say, what it was speaking to me. I honestly love every Bond except Daniel Craig. I've always had issues with Craig, and we can get into that later. But I love the franchise. I love the franchise so much. I love the books. I even read the books that aren't read, written by Fleming. Um, I'm blanking on the names now, but who's the guy who wrote most of the books right after Fleming?
Well, there was a bunch of people who did books after Fleming. You think of Raymond Benson?
Raymond Benson. Yes. Yeah, I read all that stuff, and I'm still reading all the new ones coming out. So I enjoy this world. I love this world. I'm a big fan of espionage. My second movie was an homage to James Bond. So this franchise means a lot to me. And I wanted to discuss it with somebody who I know is also a massive, giant fan who was there for a lot of it. So, Rick, let's talk James Bond. Tell us how you became a fan.
Well, you think you grew up with him. What was your first James Bond movie?
It was A View to a Kill.
And you think you grew up with him?
Well,
Well, View
according
to
to
a
my
Kill is
age.
the view. Well, yeah, that's it. But my attitude. Everybody can be a fan, but you came into it pretty late in the game. My very first adult movie, after years of going to Saturday matinees and seeing Tarzan movies and Flash Gordon serials and Three Stooges shorts, one day I go to because every Saturday I walk from my home to the community theater, and and usually they had the children's matinee for somewhere between 10 cents and 35 cents. That's how old I am. And in 1962, I walked to my theater for the Saturday matinee, and there's no Tarzan, there's no Three Stooges, there's no Bugs Bunny, there's no short subjects. There's one movie being shown, and it's called Dr. No. And I went, oh, well, okay, I'll go see this. And let me do my impersonation of me sitting in the audience. I did not have the happiest of home lives, and I was always looking for someone who could show me the way, someone who was assured and capable and knew what he was doing and was smart and was effective. And there's this Scottish guy, and and Jack Lord and Joseph Wiseman. And it's like, and went right home. I had been reading 5 books a week for years by then, and just all the James Bonds, one after another, one after another. Just from the very first book, Casino Royale, all the way to the last book, The Man with the Golden Gun, not including Octopussy and the compilations of his shorter works. And then I would see each movie as it came out, the day it came out, and as I continued working, writing books, working for Starlog magazine and other things, I would then get to be involved. And I was the head writer on the official Moonraker magazine that Warren Publishing did. So I got to.
Awesome.
And when I was there on the set of Superman in 1979, I also walked onto the 007 stage where they had the Fortress of Solitude. And everybody who worked on Superman also worked on James Bond. So I was one of the, and I got to know everybody. I met Cubby Broccoli. I met all the behind the scenes people. I've Barbara Broccoli, his daughter. And I've written, in this issue of Mystery Scene magazine, I did the 40th anniversary article about James Bond up until then. And the big thing, because of all my work and all my writing about James Bond in my books as well, I was asked to contribute to this awesome book. If you love James Bond, you got to get this book. It's more than 700 pages with quotes from everybody involved in the movies. It's an oral history. So it's from the actual people, all the actors, all the directors, all the writers, everybody, and me. And I talk about the action in the movies as well as talk about some secret things that that official people who love Bond are not supposed to talk about. I'm willing to talk about it because I want the truth. And it was hilarious when I asked Barbara Broccoli at a press conference privately about the biggest secret in Bond history. She didn't deny it. She didn't corroborate it, but she didn't deny it. To me, that's kind of like, okay, yeah, all right, I won't, I may mention it later today because for me, it's an
okay.
But be that as
yeah.
But each Bond, I got to see the transitions and the growth of Bond. You came in with the last, really pretty much the worst Roger Moore. And when the Roger Moore, when I watched all the Connerys, Lazenby, which was a gross disappointment, and even a grosser disappointment to have Sean Connery come back to do the travesty of Diamonds Are Forever. Basically, up until then, I was invested in Bond. And when his wife died, even though I sort of went, well, don't worry, that's not really James Bond that you died with. That's not James Bond as I recognize him. So great. The next movie, seeing them in progression as they came out, it changed things for me. So I said, great. Now in the next movie, Sean Connery's coming back to take revenge for the death of his wife, Tracy. And instead he creates this aversion therapy to try to get people not to accept him as James Bond anymore, and basically throws everything that came before him out. But now I don't blame him because the producers treated him like crap. And in fact, the thing that's for me, the most interesting about No Time to Die is that finally the producers are treating the star the way they should have been treating Sean Connery. They treated Daniel Craig the way they should have treated Sean Connery, but they didn't. So that's what has led to this. That's why No Time to Die exists in a Gallifreyan Doctor Who pocket universe. And so, many fans have said that James Bond is just like Doctor Who. That he is replaced, he's regenerated, and he has this new face with a new personality every couple of years. And in this one, we follow Daniel Craig's James Bond from the beginning of him being on Her Majesty's Secret Service to the end.
Yes.
No Time to Die. And as such, I said, excellent. After 25 movies, finally, the producers are free to do whatever they want now. They can do whatever they want. So in that respect, and also it's impossible, to my mind, I was happy to see that it was impossible for them to make a movie worse than Spectre. So No Time to Die, although seriously flawed, it's not as flawed as Spectre. And I admired their chutzpah, their balls, their guts. If I was Danny Boyle, who was the original director who was supposed to do this, I would have done what Danny Boyle did, which was, I'm throwing everything in Spectre out. We're starting completely new. We're going to pretend that never happened, and we're going to move on. And I'm not going to kill James Bond. But then Daniel Craig was the power on that set. He was the power on all his sets. And so he said, yeah, Bond, my Bond has to die. At the end of this movie, they have the last thing on the screen is James Bond will return. But I wanted them to say underneath that, I wanted them to have a couple of dots, and then it would say, not Daniel Craig, but James Bond will return.
Yes.
Just not Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is dead.
Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack about the movie, for sure.
Yes.
And now you mentioned, well, let's talk about just initial impressions. The first time, I've seen the movie 3 times, and I think 3 times, not because, well, I can't say I didn't like it, but I can't say I loved it either. It's one of those. My first impression was I was of two minds.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is a really, really good movie. It felt James Bondian to me. I love the scene in Cuba. I mean, I think that was like honestly the only time we've seen Craig be James Bond. They stopped to get a drink at the bar. The stuff is great.
But the Cuba scene is I hoping and I'm praying that that's a pilot for a parallel series of movies about Paloma. Ana de Armas is the best thing in that movie without question. It's the only scene in the movie with an actual fight rather than a gun. And she's awesome. Yes, she's got life, and she brought Daniel with her. And I want them, they've been they first said that we're going to get Michelle Yeoh in a parallel series, and that never happened from Tomorrow Never Dies. Okay, then we're going to get Halle Berry in a parallel series from Die Another Day. Well, now's the time for the parallel series with Ana de Armas as Paloma. My God, she was great. And that was the thing. She lit up the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then after that, the movie takes a really nice lull. And everyone gets sleepy and we're just researching for about an hour.
Time to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. My first impression was I was like, I can't fucking believe they did this. I cannot believe they did this. But in a way, I think it really worked. I think it's kind of cool that he goes out saving the world. I don't like the daughter thing. We'll talk about all those elements. But I thought, wow, they literally killed James Bond. Is this the final one?
No,
and then we get the tag at the end. No, he'll be back. So in a way,
Craig is gone. Bond will be back.
Sure. Well, but I don't know. It felt a little irrelevant to have him die. And now I don't have. I was looking for it, but I don't have this written down. But I could swear there was an interview with Barbara Broccoli during Casino Royale where she said Daniel Craig is the same man as all the other Bonds. They're all one person. And I mean, as we've seen the Craig era develop, it's obviously retconning and rewriting everything. So does this Bond dying in this one, does that 100% now confirm that every Bond is in a different universe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have connecting tissue, which is the weird part.
Just like Doctor Who. They have connecting tissue. But in fact, if you look up James Bond timeline on Google, you'll find some really cool articles that say the Connery era, the Moore era. I mean, they have connecting tissue. There's no Tracy Bond in Craig's era. And by the way, you were commenting about how you felt about the entire movie. I have a dear friend, an excellent martial arts teacher named James D. Lee, Sensei James D. Lee. And his comment was one of my favorites. He said, "It's good and bad at the same time."
Yeah.
I went, that well said, James. Very well put. Yeah, it is. It's good and bad at the same time. I mean, there are things. The first time I saw it was under interesting circumstances, and I had to watch it like this. But then the second time I saw it was in my favorite theater, the biggest theater I go to. It's my favorite technical. And of course, I never need to go to a movie theater ever again because the projector lamp bulb was low.
Oh,
it wasn't as bright, because they're trying to save money or whatever. So that's fine. But the second time, I was able to react to things the way, because I was watching it carefully. I was studying it the first time. Second time, I already knew, so I could relax and just watch it. And then all the stupidity started to happen. All this, all the, you know, all the contrivances. Like one of the very first, I was so happy that he went back and saw Vesper's grave. And then what's the first thing that happens when he goes to see Vesper's grave? It blows up in his face.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that was kind of cool. That makes sense. But then I flashed back immediately after to the guys who were planting the bomb. They were going, all right, let's not kill him. Let's just kind of stun him because we want
to get him dirty.
We want to. Blofeld wants to say this is from him, so we won't kill him with a bomb in the grave. We'll just stun him. You know, it's Monty Python. It's a James Bond movie like Tenet. Tenet was a James Bond movie by way of Doctor Who, directed by the Monty Python team. And this was another Monty Python Bond.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Just all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, Blofeld says hello. And by the way, you got to have a great deal of faith in your Secret Service when they don't effing notice that the worst villain in the world has this eye that has all sorts of signals coming through it. At one point, Tanner, played by Rory Kinnear, is saying, "Oh yeah, he's just mumbling to himself like he always."
Right.
Does. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
So, wow. So
that's a good. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of holes like that. Like, how do they not pick up signals going in and out? Where strange, mysterious signals are coming in, and nobody's listening to him. Nobody's recording his mumblings. I feel like that would be important.
so stupid. So stupid. Also,
Yeah.
The slowest jail cell in the world. Slowest jail cell.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Let's mention that real quick. We do. They double down on Blofeld. They don't. They're not gonna like. Let's forget it happened. They double down. He's coming back. He actually tries to kill Bond. You know, he was part of the whole Cuba situation.
Yeah, but he could have killed him with the bomb. He could have killed him.
Could have killed him with the bomb. Absolutely. One thing that I don't love about the Craig era, and I think this is something that maybe people looking back in 10 years will be like, oh, you know what? That does happen quite a bit. And there's a lot of repetition. I feel like he's always going on vacation, or he's always retired. Every movie he's retiring or giving up the game. And something that happens in this movie, the jail cell sequence, that felt eerily similar to me. It's almost exactly the Silva sequence. I mean, even Silva has something, you know, messed up with his face and his eye. So I was like, they're doing this again? They just did this scene.
Yeah, they're doing it again. They're like Jackie Chan. They keep doing it over and over again until they get it right. But they haven't gotten it right.
No.
Because if there's one thing that Craig's era was about, it was about navel gazing. And I understand that. That happens a lot in the mystery field and in the science fiction field because all the great stories have been written. So all these new writers can do is concentrate on the character. So Craig's series was all about, poor pitiful me. I'm James Bond and life sucks. And that's fine because after he's had 19 movies before him, as Daniel Craig, I don't blame him for going, I want to be different. I want to do something different. The problem is that he is so good in Casino Royale, and the movie itself is so good. And I also found that fascinating. Now I feel one of the flaws is, again, Daniel Craig's fault, which is the only major flaw in Casino Royale, to my mind, is they get rid of the best villain. They have him die off screen and then replace him with all sorts of people we don't know.
Right.
For the finale. They do that again here. Blofeld dies off screen and in comes Safin. Now, I dare anybody watching, or you, Master Chaos, to tell me what the hell Safin's goal was.
Well, I've seen it 3 times, and the only thing I can piece together is he's really mad because Blofeld killed his family, and so he wants to depopulate the Earth. That's what I
He wants to
that's all that I
Thanos.
know.
He wants to Thanos the thing. But
Right.
I truly believe this at this point, because they had such a long production time, that on final viewing, they decided to gut his motivation, because the stuff that he's spouting at the end there is just kind of like, what?
Empty. Yeah.
He starts the movie with a specific goal. Let us kill this evil organization. And I remember the line that Bond says when they see all these new DNA uh, things. He's saying, there are thousands. I'm going,
Mhm.
thousands? That's all? There are
Yeah.
thousands? I believe and that's why it also explains why Safin keeps repeating, you are alike. We are both alike. We are similar, you and I. I believe his motivation in the original script, although
Hmm.
Craig has said there were 4 scripts, there were 4 shooting scripts for this floating around.
Wow. Wow.
But that's not unusual for a major motion picture. But be that as it may,
Hmm.
I believe his motivation was that he wanted to rid the world of evil people. He was getting select DNA from select evil organizations, and
Hmm.
that's who he was going to target. So that would have complicated matters enormously in
Right.
terms of Bond's. Yeah, he is. We are similar, but they couldn't let that. That would be too much. And also, I think they gutted this whole situation as to why he saved Matilda. And well, Matilda's the child, right? What's the
Yeah.
name of the
Madeline.
Madeline? Um, yeah, why he was so obsessed with them? That was super creepy. All the scenes with the child were just like, oh man,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that and but up until then, I loved all the shout outs and homages to all the other Bonds and all the other movies, and
Hmm.
also the books. You read the books, you know where the Poison Garden comes from.
Yeah. Live twice, right?
That's right, the book of
Yeah.
your and they're doing shout out. I mean, Lazenby got more street cred from this than anything else. I
That's
mean,
true. That's
they
very
start
true.
the movie with the theme song, and they start and end the movie with the theme song to Honor Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah. Speaking of Safin, I was going to say this towards the end, but I'm curious your thoughts. There
Yeah,
is a rumor that he was originally going to be Doctor No,
yeah,
and there's a part in the movie towards the end where one of his henchmen calls him Doctor. He's
yeah.
never been referred to Doctor before.
Right.
So what do you think? You think he was Doctor No, and they said, "Oh, we probably shouldn't do this."
At From what I know, from what I've heard, originally that was certainly an idea they were bouncing around, but I
Mm,
believe that idea was gutted almost immediately by Craig. I'm guessing because he says, "No, we're not. I'm dying here. I am not going to. I am not. You know that. In other words, when Barbara Broccoli said that Craig is just like the others, he's just another Bond like the 5 others. I think that she was planning, and it's a decent plan for this movie to be the Doctor No adventure,
hmm
which would send Bond on a series of reboots and remakes, perhaps,
mm,
which makes a lot of sense because at this point, there's no place really for them to go. I mean, they've done 25 movies, and Mission Impossible is out there, and Fast and Furious is out there, and John Wick is out there, and many
yeah,
other Triple X is out there, and everybody and Mission Impossible certainly has stolen a lot of Bond's thunder.
yeah.
They either have to go back, or I feel they either have to go back or they have to go forward, but I'm not sure how they go forward. Because if you keep on trying to up the ante, you as Jackie Chan said to me, I've done everything 3 times.
Yeah. Well, that going forward, I think is going to be the issue, and maybe they obviously they're smart, they know what they're doing, but I don't know if they've really thought about it because I feel you go ahead.
Do they know what they're doing?
Well,
Do
I
they?
don't know. I mean,
I'm not
they
sure they do.
Well, I've never met them in person, but I feel like at least they have a grasp of what it means to people. And if
Yeah,
them killing James Bond is a big, like, holy shit, like, this is a big moment that you're either going to destroy the franchise, you're 100% gonna divide fans, and you're saying Craig is no longer a part of the rest of them. He is right now. He is irrelevant to the Bonds that we know.
right,
He is a bubble universe Bond.
right. He's his own.
So right. So can they come back from this? Because a lot of people came. Well, a lot of people came to James Bond because of Craig. They discovered James Bond because, oh, we like Daniel Craig. In their mind, this is the general audience, of course. In their mind, Daniel Craig is dead. Oh, there's a new James Bond, but he died. I'm not gonna go see that. I feel like they're gonna lose a lot of those people that thought Daniel Craig is Bond and that's it. So how
Nah.
they've made him expendable. I just don't know how they're gonna come back from this.
Let me ask you something, Master Chaos. Are
Okay.
you going to see the next James Bond movie?
Well, I said general audiences.
Don't
General audiences.
don't go talking about people you don't know. Don't go talking
Okay.
about
Well,
people you don't
I
know. Are
I'll
you
I
gonna go
will.
see it?
I will go see it, but I'm gonna be 100% more skeptical than I would have going in. Oh, a new James Bond. I'm gonna go in with some goodwill, but I'm gonna be like, well, how could I just don't know. They. I feel like they've killed my friend, and I don't know how to go through this because it's different. It's different from the other ones. The other guys never died. We just got a new one, and the adventure continues. But here, you establish that he's
Well,
mortal. You know what I mean?
here's what they should do. Here's what they should do. At the beginning of the next movie, he should be in a graveyard. And he should get up from the grave and he should walk toward the camera. And when he gets close to the camera, he should say, "This never happened to the other fellow."
And he's talking about Prince Charming.
Yeah. My attitude is that, you grew up, you went through Moore, you went through Dalton, you went through Brosnan, you went through Craig. And
Right.
because Craig dies, you are not a real Bond fan, my friend. You are not a Bond fan. I'm telling you, as a
Well,
Bond fan, I've seen 25 movies. I'll see the next one. I'm not gonna hold it against them that they did something. And tell you the truth, after Spectre and Quantum of Solace, I'm glad
right.
they killed him. I'm glad they killed him.
Well,
I
okay.
wanted him out of this series.
Right, right.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out, Daniel. You were awesome in Casino Royale. And Skyfall, even though your Bond was incompetent in that, it was still entertaining and a nice homage to the series. And in this one, I am very impressed with your guts. I'm very impressed with your courage to do what you did. And you're all over the place, but you gave us you gave us 165 minutes worth, and it's really pretty. And like I said in my original review, there's a lot to like, there's a lot to not like. And for me, this is the last Jedi of James Bond films.
I hated The Last Jedi.
I know, I love The Last Jedi.
Well,
For the same reasons. For the same reasons, because I said, boy, you guys have got guts. Man, you got cojones, man. Just incredible. I also loved it because most of the fans that I read about were complaining after the first one, The Force Awakens. Oh, it's so
right.
predictable. It's so predictable. So I'm watching Last Jedi going, predict this. I dare you to predict anything in this movie. So,
No,
like I said,
absolutely.
it was bold. Bold.
It was bold. But I mean, being upset that they killed the legacy doesn't make me any less of a fan. I mean, I love the franchise and I care about it.
They killed
And
the legacy. They just killed Craig.
well, that's the thing, this movie has now created a paradigm shift in the whole franchise because now it's not. We're seeing how Bond got his 00 number. Oh, but that doesn't matter because that's David Tennant, so that doesn't really matter. Oh, well, we're seeing how he dies. Well, that doesn't really matter because that doesn't affect the franchise. For me, and maybe I was watching it wrong the whole time. To me, Bond was always one guy, and this was just different actors having the same guy go in different iterations. Has that always been a thing that he's not the same guy?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You take each Bond as themselves. I mean, if you came into
Mm,
the kitchen and your girlfriend or your wife or your boyfriend or your father changed faces every couple of years and you let that slide, that's your decision. But having seen all these things, it's the same thing. When I was a kid, adults would always say, "Oh, we can't let kids watch cartoons because they don't know that that's a cartoon anvil falling on a cartoon coyote." And I'm going, I can tell the difference between reality and fantasy. And when I go to the movies, I don't think that's real. I think it's an
right.
entertainment. Take it as an individual entertainment. And I don't say, well, because Daniel Craig's Bond dies in this one, it changes nothing except that Daniel Craig won't be back. And I say, hallelujah.
Hmm.
So it's and I do not expect any movie to be anything other than what it is in for the time that I'm in the theater. Because I've seen so many movies being rebooted, remastered, redone, that I'm able to distinguish between one and the other. And I'm going to take each piece of entertainment as its own entity without needing to graft whatever it does on any other iteration of that series. I've seen so many series in my life: Tarzan, uh, Mission Impossible, Fast and the Furious. I mean, Fast and
Hmm.
the Furious is hilarious in terms of trying to figure out the timeline of that one. But I don't
Yeah.
buy that. I take each entertainment as its unique self, and I say, did I like it? Did I not like it? What could have been better? What could have been worse? How do I feel about it? And not, how does No Time to Die affect Moonraker? I don't do that. How does Moonraker affect No Time to Die? I don't do
Mm.
that. I watch each thing. And also because they made a through story, which is the first time in James Bond history that they did a through story. I say, all right, how did that work? Casino Royale, great. Quantum of Solace, sucky. Skyfall, okay. Spectre, awful. No Time to Die, a fascinating solution to the to the pit they've trapped themselves in.
They had to burn it to the ground. There's
Yeah.
no way that they could continue with another actor playing that storyline.
And yeah, Daniel Craig made sure of that. That's what he wanted. And so more power to you, Daniel. You had the power on this. It made your career. You were richer than you ever thought you could ever be, and you will continue to be. You
Right.
know, you're doing all these sequels. You're on Broadway. You have a wonderful wife and family. Now I want them to do a series of Paloma movies. That will keep
Yeah.
Craig
See,
alive.
I don't know if that would happen honestly, but see, I'm a big Canon guy, and for me, if you establish something, then I take it as gospel, and that's the truth. And then if the next movie tells me that's wrong, I'm like, wait a minute, but you lied to me. You said this was happening.
Well,
Um,
you're setting yourself up for pain. You're setting yourself up for
you
pain and
know, I'm a fan of stories, and I can't go blank slate into a franchise if you establish one thing. Like, wait a minute, but that character died, or this situation doesn't happen. Last Jedi. Just to touch on it briefly, um, Luke was underused. He dies meditating. The Beyond that, the movie is terrible. It's just a bad script. Here, we're not seeing the same outcry and rage that we're seeing with The Last Jedi, and I think it's because No Time to Die is a good movie, uh,
I
which I think helps that.
well, not really, because I personally think that that shows that people are divided about Craig. That some people love him, some people don't. And by the way, you said you're story oriented. Can't you handle one story at a time? Does all stories have to connect? They don't, and they don't for the most part. So
You
again,
know,
I think you're creating a situation. You're self defeating yourself. You're setting yourself up for disappointment unnecessarily.
but how do you not do that if you're watching a TV show? Every episode. I mean, maybe the older shows would be standalone episodes, but now. every episode feeds into itself. And with a
It,
franchise, it's the same thing. You know, they're
it,
making Scream 5 now. If it doesn't answer the
no, no.
same canon rules, then it's how doesn't that just break everything? I can't watch that separate like that.
Well, that's you, and I'm glad that as a person who's creative and trying to entertain people through my various works, I'm glad most of the world isn't you, because Doctor Who.
Right. Well, that's work that's got a mechanic where science that is the story. He has to regenerate. That's already been worked in there.
This is a, no offense,
Mm.
take it if you wish. This is a useless conversation. This is a
Okay.
useless discussion because you told me what you feel. I told you what I feel. I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change my mind. And so
Okay.
let's not just keep harping on this because there's no solution to the issue.
Gotcha. What do you think Cubby would think of this of the movie? If
He said, "I have no idea." Well, no, I do have an idea. I do have
okay,
an idea. I do have an idea, having spoken to him. He was a lovely person. He was very nice, and he was very loving of his family. And his family, it's his family business. And Cubby, there's one thing that you can say about Cubby. I mean, the conversations I had with him about Moonraker were quite hilarious. Um, Cubby just cared about the bottom line. The reason that he treated Sean so shittily is all he cared about was the bottom line. And as
mm,
long as the movie did well, he didn't care whether the movie was good, was bad. Well, he's in the movie business. The box office was the only thing that he made his judgments upon. And the fact he would be very proud of his daughter and his son-in-law, and he would be amazed, or he might be amazed and happy and gratified that the thing he created with Harry Saltzman all those years ago is still going. So yeah, he is far from the guy who said, well, I don't like that scene, or I don't like this scene, or I don't like that scene. I mean, I was talking to him about the solid gold delicatessen line in Moonraker. And I was saying, and also all the humor of the double taking pigeon. One of the worst
mm,
moments in James Bond history in Moonraker was the double taking pigeon.
yeah.
And I discussed that with Broccoli. And let me tell you what his reply was, which was, I thought it was funny. That to me, I went, buddy, and you're the boss, my friend. You are the godfather of James Bond. So what
Mm,
my little petty problems with your movie is meaningless. He was a guy who put this thing together. And if it came out at all and it did well, he was very happy.
mm-hmm.
And he shared that. People loved working with Cubby because he treated the crew so well, and he treated his actors so well. And he loved working with Roger because they got along great. And Roger would, take all his monies when they were playing backgammon. So
There you
yeah,
go.
don't worry about uh, Cubby. Cubby is happy, very happy.
Okay. What would you have done different if they came to you and said, "Hey, we need help with this last one." What would you have done?
Well, I would do what I often do when I'm given a project, when I'm asked to fix something. I would go in my very first novel was for the Destroyer series, Remo Williams,
Mm,
and that was written originally. The first 20 books in the series, 24 books in the series, were written by two men. And the first guy, Richard Sapir, would write the first 95 pages of the book. And Warren Murphy, my editor, would write the second 95 pages of the book. And the way Warren described that was that I'm given a bowl of spaghetti, and my job is to tie the ends together. So it's all one long spaghetti. And he's the one who trained me in fiction. Jeff Robin trained me in nonfiction. Warren Murphy trained me in fiction. And
mm,
so when I'm given a project like that and I'm given something, fix this, I'm structure. I'm a structure guy. I
mm,
like setups and payoffs. I mean, that's why I love Marvel. Marvel is into emotional content. Also, I love Bruce Lee, emotional content. Um, I want to go in, and when I find a setup that doesn't have a payoff, I want to connect the setups with the payoffs. Because I find when I see a movie and I see something like the exploding grave, I want to, you know, subtly or cleverly or overtly in some way have that tie in such a way that the audience goes, ah, oh, or that's funny, oh, that's clever, or that's imaginative, oh, that's tragic. And I find that setups and payoffs, Alfred Hitchcock said that if you create a tension in the audience, you are duty bound to release it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. And, Avengers Endgame, people laughed, people cried, people cheered, all at the same time together. And so I want every movie to make me feel something. If it's a comedy, I want it to make me laugh. If it's a drama, I want it to make me think. If it's a tragedy, a romance, I want to be able to cry. And in an action movie, I want to cheer. I want to be thrilled. And the only thing that truly thrilled me in this movie, I mean, I liked a lot of it. I didn't like a lot of it. But the thing that thrilled me was the Paloma scene. The Paloma scene was thrilling. And I have to admit, even I saw it for the first time, and I needed, being the age I am, I needed a bathroom break when I'm watching it the second time. And I chose to go to the bathroom during the fight at the end, where all Bond is doing is shooting. And he's not cleverly shooting. He's not using the environment to set up the shot. He's not, shooting a deadly acid thing to splash in the guy's face. He's not doing anything clever. It's just a bull in a china shop. It's boom, 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 boom. And that bores me. It's like Paloma, go back to the Paloma scene. She was James Bond from Casino Royale. Remember the fights in Casino Royale?
Mm-hmm.
Those were all beautifully designed.
Yeah.
And I was, yeah. When, the guy throws the gun at him at the beginning, he catches it and throws it back. Going, yeah. When the guy leaps through that little window at the top of the wall and then Bond comes through the wall, I'm going,
yeah.
I mean, at the end of a movie, I like to think back on the movie and go, oh, yeah, that was cool. Oh, yeah, that was neat. Oh, that was clever. Not a lot of that in this movie. Not a lot. Not when it comes to Bond. When it came to Paloma, yeah.
Yeah.
And also all the Easter eggs were great. I was surprised because my friends in England said there was a painting of the Bernard Lee M in that scene. But there wasn't in the American cut. In the American cut, there was only Judi Dench. And what's his name? Not Bernard Lee.
The other one. Yeah.
Robert Brown. There was Robert Brown on the left wall. There was Judi Dench directly behind him, and apparently Bernard Lee was on the other wall. Was on the right wall. But we didn't get to see it. So hopefully in the uncut director's cut or whatever, if they do a DVD with a director's cut, he may be in that one. Also, I have to admit, as a longtime Bond fan from the very beginning, I'm sorry they did not acknowledge the passing of Sean and Roger.
Yeah.
During the credits, that would have been nice.
Yeah, it would have been nice. Yeah.
But again, Dan, I've heard this from more than one person that Daniel Craig was the power on that set. What Daniel said went. And so if he said, no, I don't want my death to be distracted from by a mention of an arguably superior Bond.
Right.
That's the way it goes.
And we touched on this briefly, but Danny Boyle, so he pretty much left, right, because he didn't want to kill Bond, right? Is that what we understand?
He didn't want Bond to die, but he didn't realize what Craig was doing. But that's fine, and also it was fine with Craig, I believe, because if Boyle had been on the set, there would have been discussions. There would have been arguments.
Gotcha, yeah.
And with Carey, who's a fine director, he did a very great technical job. There's not going to be any arguments. Again, what Craig says goes. That's the way it's going to work here. You do what I want to do. You do it as best you can and as classily as you can.
Right.
But,
Right.
no, this is all about me. Please understand, everybody. This is all about me, except for one scene. But that's because he likes Anna because they were in Knives Out together.
Yeah. Yeah.
He recommended her for that role.
And now, yeah, now they're in two franchises together, which is nice.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you think about him having a kid? I thought that was such a weird subplot, and I felt like, and I didn't understand why Madeline like kept it a secret, and then like Safin revealed it. It was all very awkward.
It was extremely awkward, and he, after Tracy Bond, played by Diana Regan on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and after Vesper, played by Ava Green in Casino Royale, Madeline was just, I was going, I am so sorry you're still alive. You are a lying, what an idiot you are. And she was, no, the word I have for her, she was a simp. S-I-M-P. She was a simp. And she was, her motivations, I'm a survivor. I understand that she's a frightened, what she is a pale plagiarism of Vesper, is what she is. She is a replacement. Just like Daniel Craig's Bond has gotten rid of everybody to put in these nameless faces, stand-ins. That's why I think Craig identifies with George Lazenby. That's why there's so much of On Her Majesty's Secret Service in this, because Lazenby was a stand-in. Lazenby might as well have been an Australian stand-in for Sean Connery, for all the power he had on screen. Lazenby had virtually no power on screen. As I often say, he was a soft center. He was callow and he was shallow, and other OW words. He did not grip the screen. He didn't grip me. He was a great disappointment. So Craig kind of liked him, I think, because he was underrated, because he only had one shot at it, thanks to his own self-sabotage. And he was a replacement. So Craig wanted a replacement for Blofeld. He wanted a replacement for Vesper. He wanted to be all about him, which is why all the major characters are unique to Craig's Bond, not to anyone else. Blofeld had been in all the other ones, so let's get rid of Blofeld. And Casino Royale had been done twice before, so Le Chiffre had been around twice before, so let's get rid of him and put just a stand-in, who we don't know. And it's the same thing here. She was man, I do not envy her. The actress is awesome.
Yeah.
And the same thing, so is Rami Malek. He's an Oscar-winning actor.
Yeah.
They're given these completely hollow roles. And you can see them both sort of like, all right, we're gonna do the best we can. We're gonna cry and we're gonna whisper and we're gonna and try to survive these character. These were almost literal character assassinations.
Mm-hmm.
They were asked to do the impossible and they couldn't do them, but they got a good paycheck. They're not going to suffer. It's not like anybody's going to blame them for the hollowness of their parts. Their performance was fine as far as they were able to go, which was not very far. You look at these characters objectively, and they're awful. They're very badly drawn. They're seemingly both totally schizophrenic. They're just there for Daniel Craig's Bond service. They're doing bottle service for Bond. That's what they're there for. And the choice, and the daughter giving Bond something to die for. I thought that was interesting. The daughter didn't give him something to live for. Somebody pointed out, what? He can't stay away from them? He can't touch them? No. If they're alive, I have to be able to touch them. So therefore, I would rather commit suicide and not to have any effect on them whatsoever than let them exist without me. So fuck me. I'm a dead man. Blow me up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
Uh,
I admired them blowing them up in front of us. I thought they would keep it nebulous,
right.
you know, smoke and a lot of smoke. You're not sure whether he's dead or not. But no, he's
Yeah,
dead. He's
yeah.
dead.
No, there's no
Gone.
question. He is obliterated.
He's nanobots. He's all little nanobots.
Yeah, it's all over the ocean now.
I love
Um,
those nanobots too. I bet they looked
yeah,
up. I bet they looked up nanobot in Wikipedia and only read the first paragraph.
apparently, I mean, maybe Q's just not well versed. They're like, no, there's no way to get rid of them. Sorry, I'm not going to do any more research. You're screwed.
No,
And
no,
it's funny that it's really funny that there are movies about viruses, and this was way before COVID was even a thing. Uh, uh, that's very prescient, but I can see
no.
why they held back.
They did that in Iron Soldier. I mean, Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They also had a pandemic subplot.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. I'm taking a back seat on those TV shows.
They also edited that to eliminate most of the COVID subplot. So it's going to be a little jumpy, but yeah,
Interesting.
no problem. More,
Um,
as I say, more for me. You don't see it? Great, more for me. I get
there
to
you
see it.
go. Guys in the chat, if you have any questions for Rick about James Bond or
About the whole
Remo
spirit.
Williams, you
Yeah,
know,
Rima Williams.
um,
Oh yeah. Do you want me to tell you the secret? You want me to tell
oh
you the?
yeah, yeah. What is the open secret?
It's not open, man. You saw Tomorrow Never Dies, right?
Yeah.
Terry Hatcher is in that movie. Yeah, she plays Bond's old love interest.
Uh
You
huh.
notice, you notice she dies within 10 minutes of her first appearance on screen.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
Did you notice that on her corpse they have an entire scene with just one actor, which they had to write and film with nobody else from the thing, and they couldn't get Terry Hatcher back for it. So Terry Hatcher's face is digitally painted onto the corpse. The corpse was a stand-in.
Oh wow.
Yeah. What happened was, as far as I know, and I do not know this firsthand, I know this second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh hand. There's a rumor that on Tomorrow Never Dies, the entire crew had T-shirts at the end of production saying, "I survived. Tomorrow Never Dies." And apparently, the producers had to hunt them all down and and say, if you ever want to work on a Bond movie again, and even if you don't ever want to work on a Bond movie again, destroy those shirts.
Wow.
Also, I was watching the live telecast of the Tomorrow Never Dies premiere in London, and they asked Pierce Brosnan if he had anything to say to his co-star Terry Hatcher, and he said something that was very similar. I don't have the exact quote because for years after I tried to find that interview again, it no longer exists.
Mm.
He says she should be nicer to people on the way up because she's going to meet them on the way down.
Whoa.
And I was with Michelle Yeoh, who plays Wei Lin in that movie,
Hmm.
the night before she reported to the set. We were having a party for her in New York. And so I was right next to her. We were talking. I gave her all the books. I've done articles about her, inside cover of Inside Kung Fu, all this stuff. And she gets a phone call, and she says, "Oh, it's the Bond people. I have to take this call." So she takes the call. She takes the call at the bar, but she's still close enough to me so I can hear what she's saying. And she's on the phone, and she goes, "Well, why did they hire me if they don't want to use me?" And then on Entertainment Tonight, I saw a visit to the set with Terry Hatcher. Terry Hatcher is showing the Entertainment Tonight people, showing them around the set. Michelle Yeoh is directly behind her. They're in the big party scene. Michelle Yeoh is when she's introduced in the film, and she's
Right.
wearing a big sparkly dress. And Terry Hatcher flatly ignores her, does not
Wow.
introduce. So, what I heard through my contacts from being on the set of Superman and all these other movies that I was on the set of, all these English guys who work on everything, is that Terry Hatcher made it her business to try to reduce Michelle Yeoh's part to essentially a glorified cameo.
Wow.
Walk on. And unfortunately for Terry, she went to this one set in the world in the history of cinema where she had a director and a star who weren't happy with that. And they fired her. They fired Terry Hatcher, which was monumental because then they had to rewrite the movie as they went and gave Michelle Yeoh all the attention. In the original script, as far as I know, Terry Hatcher's character, Paris Carver, was in Bond's arms at the end. She was the Bond girl. Well, Michelle Yeoh became the Bond girl.
Wow.
And again, it was all a sort of a well-known secret, but it's not something we were going to spread. And it was the one behind the scenes thing that they did not, the legal department of this publisher saw my quotes about that, and they said, "Nah, we cannot publish that."
Oh man.
Fair enough. So that's the big secret. That's one of the.
Wow.
I mean, in my mystery scene cover article on the 40th anniversary of James Bond, I talk about the secret history of James Bond, and I talk about that as well. Yeah, there we go. A secret history of the James Bond films. So if you can find mystery scene winter issue number 78, 2003, or if you'd like, I'll read it to you right now. No, so in any case, yeah, there's a lot of crap that went down, but for the most part, they did a miraculous job, and I love James Bond. Any questions, anybody?
Is that similar to what happened with Monica Bellucci? Because she's Inspector and she's in the movie for about as much as Terry Hatcher is.
No,
Is that just a Daniel Craig thing or what?
it could have been a Daniel Craig thing, but it also could have been a Monica Bellucci thing.
Yeah.
She's very popular and famous actress, so she doesn't need to be in the whole effing movie. Because as Craig can tell you, working on a Bond film is not easy. It's exhausting, and he got one of the reasons that Spectre was so bad is that Craig was in such pain during that. He was in the way his wife described it is that he was in agony.
Wow.
His leg in that opening sequence, The Day of the Dead, many of the people on the set was amazed he was able to get through that because his leg was wrecked.
Wow.
So yeah, what Bellucci, but poor Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan had the worst luck. After GoldenEye, he gets the whole Tomorrow Never Dies fiasco. So then again, he was basically told, you cannot fire another leading actress. So he gets his next two leading actresses just drag him through the ringer. Because what's her name from, Christmas Jones?
Denise Richards, yeah.
Denise Richards, awful. And the rumor I got was that she wanted to prove she was a real actress. So she wasn't going to be sexy. She wasn't going to sex it up. And she was going to prove she was a real actress. And, poor Pierce is like, and then Halle Berry turned into a damsel in distress in the world. And Sophie Marceau, absolutely awesome. That's one of the worst. His execution of that character was so unnecessary. He shoots her point blank when all he had to do was slap the phone out of her hand. And it's like, what is going on in this movie? Poor Daniel. Not Daniel.
Yeah.
Not poor Daniel. Poor
Pierce.
Pierce.
Yeah. Okay, a couple questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Mike says, what is Rick's favorite Bond film?
We had this discussion a lot. I ultimately after this
No Time.
No Time. Thank you. After No Time to Die. I originally thought it was Casino Royale, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to take it. Casino Royale it's a battle for me between From Russia with Love and Casino Royale. I have my favorite Connery Bond was From Russia with Love. My favorite Lazenby Bond was whatever, the only thing it could be. I love that movie. That's one of my favorite Bond movies. Had Bond been in that movie, that would have been my favorite, but he wasn't. They had a
I see. Yeah.
Spy Who Loved Me was my favorite Moore Bond. Dalton, I'll have to take not License to Kill, the other one.
That's my
Uh,
favorite, actually. License to Kill, I think, is really great.
Living Daylights.
Living Daylights is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, and Goldeneye I think is one of the best too. But and then Casino Royale, yeah. But ultimately, From Russia with Love, because that set the whole thing. That created even more than Doctor No. That created Bond. The greatest thing in Doctor No, without question, was Bond, James Bond. I mean, that scene was just like super awesome.
Epic. Yeah. Last question here. Joe says, "Hey Rick, what do you make of the 1960s Casino Royale film?"
That was a tragedy because the producer died during it. And because he knew he was dying, he just threw everything but the kitchen sink. They had all this talent. David Niven was one of the people who Ian Fleming mentioned would make a great James Bond.
Wow.
But because they turned it into a satire rather than and also a scattershot satire, not really very funny satire, it was a shame. With all that talent, they could have done an amazing movie, but they didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap it up, and I let you plug your books and things. What do you think the future is? Do you have a perfect future Bond in mind? And what do you think they should do? Should they go back in time? Should they just continue modern day? Let me know.
My feeling on this is that Daniel Craig taught me not to care who the next James Bond is. I realized that I was mortal one time when I was out with all my James Bond friends. I could tell you the stories of all the premieres of the James Bond movies I went to, which were all wonderful experiences. But I was hanging with my friends, and after Quantum of Solace, I looked at my friends at the party we were at the dinner we were at. I looked at my best friend of like 50, 55 years, and I said, I no longer care who the next James Bond is. And I went, oh, I am going to die someday. Someday I won't know who the new Doctor Who is. I won't know who the new James Bond is. But thankfully, Daniel Craig cured me. I don't really care. However, if it were me, I've always wanted an Ian Fleming style James Bond. In other words, Ian Fleming based James Bond on him, his personality, his looks, his character, his rapier thin body, his wit, his all the rest of it. And that's what I thought Tom Hiddleston would have done, an excellent Ian Fleming style James Bond. Someone more into wit and imagination and inventiveness than he is in fisticuffs. Although Daniel Craig was the perfect blunt instrument Bond. Bond has also been described in the books as a blunt instrument. So that would have been cool for me, but I don't think that's right now. Nobody wants to do period pieces. They have to continue on in the future. What I would really like to see in my final years of Bond viewing is over the history, Christopher Nolan really wants to make a James Bond movie. Steven Spielberg really wants to make a James Bond movie. Quentin Tarantino really wants to make a Bond movie. I say, let them all. Let them do what DC is doing with the DC superheroes, what Warner Brothers are doing with the DC superheroes. Everybody's Bond can be their Bond, just like Daniel Craig was his Bond, period, beginning to end, over. So let Steven Spielberg do his James Bond. Set it anytime he wants to set it, cast whoever he wants as Bond, and have them all be one-offs. Or if it works super well, the producers can decide, let's do more with this James Bond. But definitely Christopher Nolan should do the next one. Not necessarily, I think Tom Hardy may be a little old, but Tom Hardy will get into shape for that. And each of them can do their James Bond story. Because after 25 movies, you don't really have to follow the rules, especially after Craig. Again, that's why I'm glad that he got killed. because you don't have to follow the rules anymore. Everything that you loved about it, Chaos, is thrown out now. Now
Mm-hmm.
they're free. They're free to do whatever they want. So go crazy, guys. Have some fun. And I'm telling you, if they do that, everybody will go to it, and they don't have to worry about the sequel because that'll be all new, all fresh again. We have our choice.
Right.
That's personally, greedily, selfishly, that's what I want.
All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, Amazon has the rights now, so there's been talk of a TV show and a whole bunch of things. So I'm guessing we'll know something sooner than later. They have said that next year, early next year, is when they're going to start that conversation about the next Bond. So
It will be. All I can tell you for sure is if I'm alive, I'll see it.
there you go. And on that note, why don't you give us a few plugs here before we call it a night?
Well, of course, I mean, definitely nobody. I don't get any money for this, even though I'm throughout the book. But but as a Bond fan, I cannot believe that anybody who's not a Bond fan doesn't have this book. You should really get this book. Nobody does it better. You can get it on Amazon. My major thing right now in terms of what I'm selling is Films of Fury, the Kung Fu movie book. It's still selling after 10 years because the Kung Fu film genre is pretty much on life support. So this is still relevant. And it's not my last word, but it's one of my final words on the subject. So and also you can see me on the Netflix documentary Iron Fist and Kung Fu Kicks. You can see the documentary version of that, Films of Fury, the Kung Fu movie on IMDb TV.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to my my very weird podcast, Action Film Autopsy, Professor Rick's Action Film Autopsy, actionfilmautopsy.com, or on iTunes. I don't know if it's on Spotify, but I know it's on iTunes or whatever.
Okay.
Apple's podcast. Actionfilmautopsy.com, all one word. But you get to listen to me babble in a very incomprehensible and incoherent way. I listen to my own podcast. I'm going, oh my God, your brain is just dissolving there. Oh my goodness. You're telling people how bad you're getting, how old you're getting, man. But anyway, I still have a lot of fun doing it. And I'll be talking about No Time to Die in my October version, which I'm doing it
nice.
once a week. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the podcast, it's once a month?
Once a month.
Once a month. Okay.
Usually at the end
what I'll do, guys, when we're done here, I'll go over to the description. I'll put that in the description. You'll get that link and check that out. And then I'll go to Amazon and grab the links for the books as well, so you guys can have that. I've got the Films of Fury. I have no time to read, but I'm making my way through it, and I'm really loving it.
That's your new book. That's your new movie, No Time to Read.
And No Time to Read, exactly. I've also got the Nobody Does It Better, but it's like when I'm so tired at night, so I get maybe 1 or 2 pages in, and then I go bedtime.
That's fine. Again, just call me up. I'll read it to you. Put you right to sleep.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. We'll do it.
Remember what Daniel Craig says. No time to read.
There you go. Guys, I'm such an honor to have Rick here. It's such an honor to have you guys watching. This makes me happy to talk Bond and talk filmmaking and all that good stuff. And we'll have him back on soon when we find a good thing to talk about. We'll have to come up with some other good concept. I know we both like horror, so maybe we'll do something like that.
That would be great because I've written horror books too.
There you go.
I wanted to say our mutual friend, Fat Samurai Guy, is going to have me and Vincent Lin, the star of Operation Condor and many other great Kung Fu movies, on his YouTube channel to discuss the entire Bond series, film by film.
Oh, wow. There you go.
That should be in a couple of
That's going to be an epic watch for sure, guys. For now, I have been your Neighborhood Mastercast. I appreciate your company. I appreciate your time. And Rick, thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you next time. I'll be back tomorrow live around the same time. I'm going to be hanging out with Justin DeClue. We're going to be not watching, I guess. We're going to be reviewing 2 of the weirdest Bigfoot movies ever made, Bigfoot versus the Illuminati and Bigfoot versus Zombies. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Rick, we'll see you soon, and I'll see you soon. So take care until then.